They say the deepest betrayals come from the people you trust most. For me, it wasn't just betrayal, it was humiliation, violation, and rage rolled into one. When I first met Ethan, he was charming in that quiet, understated way. The kind of guy who looked at you like you were the only person in the room. He made me laugh, made me feel safe, made me believe I'd finally found something real. But behind those warm eyes was a camera lens I didn't know existed. It started with little moments, him always adjusting his phone on the dresser, or leaving his laptop open but turning it toward the bed when he walked away. I never thought twice about it. I was in love. I trusted him. Until the night my best friend sent me a link that would burn itself into my brain forever. There I was, in my own bedroom, laughing, undressing, sleeping. Moments that were mine alone, now for sale to strangers. I thought my world had ended in that moment, but I was wrong. It wasn't the end. It was the beginning. Because if Ethan thought he could use me for profit and walk away, he was about to learn what it really costs to betray me. Chapter 1: The Perfect Beginning. If someone had told me 2 years ago that the man who made my heart race would one day make my stomach churn, I would have laughed. Back then, Ethan was my everything. We met in the most glitch but strangely perfect way, a coffee shop on a rainy Thursday. I was stuck inside with a dead laptop battery, trying to edit a presentation on my phone. He was sitting at the table next to mine, working on what looked like architectural sketches. When he noticed me struggling, he offered his charger. USB-C or Lightning? He'd ask with that casual confidence that immediately drew me in. The conversation flowed effortlessly. He told me he was a freelance videographer, mostly shooting weddings, product ads, and the occasional travel vlog. I told him I worked in marketing. We bonded over our shared love for obscure documentaries, black coffee, and late-night street food. The first date happened 2 days later, a walk along the pier, hands brushing in that uncertain electric way. Ethan had this uncanny ability to make the world fade away when he looked at me. He asked questions that made me feel like I was the only person who mattered, and I wanted to believe I was. The weeks that followed were intoxicating. Movie marathons, inside jokes, spontaneous weekend trips. He learned how I liked my tea, remembered the story of my childhood dog, and even started watching my favorite guilty pleasure reality show just so we could talk about it. He made me feel seen, protected, safe. Looking back, maybe that's why I didn't notice the little things. Like how he always had a camera nearby. Not just when we were out, but even at home. He'd casually set his phone on the dresser while we got ready, or leave his laptop angled toward the couch when we were curled up watching TV. Sometimes I'd catch a small red light flicker, but he'd laugh it off as a notification. Sorry, work habit, he'd say, always ready to capture something. I told myself it was normal. He was a videographer. Of course, he loved recording moments. And honestly, I kind of liked that our relationship felt like a movie sometimes. Our first trip together was to Lisbon. He filmed everything: the cobblestone streets, the pastel de nata we devoured in the sun, me laughing as seagulls tried to steal my sandwich. I thought it was sweet. He edited the footage into a beautiful montage that made my friends gush. 6 months in, he met my parents. My mom adored him, my dad respected him, and my friends kept saying how lucky I was. We moved in together the following month. That's when the filming seemed heavier, more present. He'd position his phone in the corner of the bedroom to capture our Sunday morning dance parties, or keep the GoPro on the bookshelf just in case something funny happened. I didn't question it. Love does that to you, makes you normalize the unusual. At the time, I thought Ethan was building a life with me. What I didn't know was that he was already building something else entirely. Something I never agreed to. Something I'd only discover when it was far too late to undo the damage. Chapter 2: The First Cracks. The first time I realized something about Ethan's filming was different. It was so small I almost dismissed it. We were at a rooftop dinner with friends. The sun was setting, the skyline glowing gold, and someone suggested a group photo. Ethan volunteered, of course. He pulled out his DSLR, took a few shots, and then without anyone asking started recording candid videos. Natural is always better, he grinned. People drop their masks when they think the camera's off. It was a charming comment. Until later, when I noticed he hadn't just recorded the group. His lens lingered on me longer than felt natural, capturing me laughing, eating, brushing hair from my face. I figured it was his way of being romantic, but something in his smile that night didn't feel like romance. A few weeks later, my best friend Kayla came over. We were in the kitchen making cocktails when she frowned, glancing toward the bookshelf. Is that thing on?" she whispered, nodding toward the GoPro. I turned, and sure enough, the tiny red recording light blinked. "Oh, Ethan probably left it running from earlier," I said casually, though my stomach tightened. Kayla didn't look convinced. "It's just a little weird, right?" I laughed it off, changed the subject, and told myself it was fine. Ethan was a content creator. Capturing life was his job, but the cracks were forming. Ethan also started spending more time in his editing cave, our spare bedroom turned office. At first, I assumed he was working on client projects, but he became strangely possessive about his workspace. If I walked in, he'd immediately close his laptop or switch tabs. "Client privacy," he'd explain with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. One night, around a.m., I woke up to an empty bed. The glow from under his office door spilled into the hallway. I padded over quietly and heard faint clicking. And my own voice. I froze. I couldn't make out the words, but it was definitely me laughing, humming the little things you say when you think you're alone. Before I could open the door, the sound stopped. A chair scraped. I panicked, tiptoed back to bed, and pretended to be asleep when he returned. The next morning, I convinced myself I'd imagined it. Things escalated after our one-year anniversary trip to Bali. He filmed everything again: sunsets, market stalls, me swimming in the infinity pool. But this time, he seemed more focused on moments when I didn't know the camera was on, when I'd just woken up, when I was changing behind the half-closed bathroom door. Back home, I noticed he never showed me the edited Bali video, even though he'd done so for Lisbon. "Still working on it," he said whenever I asked. "Want it to be perfect." That same month, his phone became an extension of his hand. If it wasn't in his pocket, it was angled somewhere in the room. He claimed he was documenting our life for a personal project. Kayla didn't buy it. At a dinner out, she pulled me aside. "Look, I'm not trying to start anything, but I've noticed how often Ethan films you without asking. It's not cute anymore. It's invasive." I got defensive. "He's a videographer, Kayla. It's his thing." She sighed. "Just be careful. There's a difference between capturing memories and collecting footage." The final straw of this chapter came one Saturday when Ethan left for a client shoot and forgot his second phone, one I didn't even know he had charging on the desk. It was locked, but the notification banner lit up. "Payment received $1,800. Below it, another message. "New drop is fire. Can't believe you got this angle." My chest tightened. I didn't know exactly what it meant, but I knew it wasn't good. I stared at that phone for a long time, my reflection warped in its black screen. I didn't realize it yet, but that little rectangle of glass was the key to a door I didn't want to open, because once I did, there'd be no one seeing what was on the other side. Chapter 3. The discovered message from Kayla arrived at 11:41 p.m. A vibration on the nightstand that felt like a small earthquake. "Kayla, are you awake? I need you to breathe. Kayla, don't open this alone. Kayla, I'm outside." 3 dots, then a link. A plain, ugly string of characters. No context. No emojis. Kayla never sent anything without emojis. I sat up, heart sprinting. The apartment was dark except for the blue bleed from the street. In the other room, Ethan's soft snore came and went like a tide. I stared at the link until my eyes burned. Then I swung my legs over the side of the bed and padded to the living room. Kayla was on the doorstep in a hoodie and flats, hair half up like she'd left in a hurry. She didn't hug me. She put her hands on my shoulders and said, "Whatever happens, I'm here." "Tell me," I whispered. "I can't," she said. "You have to see it once. Then we destroy it. But you have to see it." We sat on the couch with my laptop between us. I turned the brightness down until the screen felt like it couldn't wake the dead. I clicked. A page loaded with a black background and a header that made my stomach tilt. It wasn't a mainstream site. It was worse, one of those paywall platforms hiding behind the word exclusive. A clip window took up half the screen, paused on a blurred thumbnail of a bedroom I recognized before my brain allowed me to. My bedroom. The title was a smirk typed in white. Sunday morning, the laughing one. I didn't know I made a sound until Kayla gripped my wrist. Wait, she said, just breathe. The play icon hovered like a dare. I didn't click it. I couldn't. My eyes drifted to the side panel where comments lived. Words from strangers about my body, my laugh, the way I moved in sleep. I tasted metal. Below the comments was a line of text. Uploaded by Frame House Tips enabled payouts. Weekly. The username stuck in my teeth. Frame House. Ethan's company was called House of Frames before he rebranded to something sleeker. He kept the old URL for his portfolio. I knew because I'd helped him pick fonts. Scroll, Kayla said softly. I did. There were thumbnails 20, 30 arranged like a gallery of break-ins. Blue Shirt Tuesday, After the Market, Jet Lag. Each title looked like an inside joke with my life. Some were just me laughing with friends in the kitchen. Some were me asleep. One was a sliver of my shoulder as I changed behind a half-closed door. All of them were us. Me, our home, our routines. My hands went numb. Who sent you this? I asked. My voice came out 2 sizes too small. Kayla swallowed. A girl from my gym messaged me. She recognized you. Someone shared the link in a private group. I told her she was wrong. That there's no way. Then I clicked and I shook my head. If I let the sentence finish, I would break. Don't watch, she said. You don't have to watch. I don't need to, I said. I remember that sweater. The red one with the loose cuff I wore on Sundays. The laughing one. He titled my life like episodes. We sat in a terrible, pulsing silence. The comments refreshed on their own, little timestamps ticking forward. Someone tipped. A green banner flashed. +60 to Frame House. I snapped the laptop shut as if the sound could slap the site. Kayla's eyes were wet but dry at the same time, like the kind of crying you do inside your ribs. I wanted to smash his computer, she said. I drove here and then you should decide. I stood. I needed air that didn't touch my skin. I opened the balcony door and stepped into the cool night while cars hissed on rain-damp asphalt. In the neighbor's window, a blue TV square flickered. Somewhere far below, a couple laughed. It sounded like knives. Inside, Kayla paced. We go to the police, she said. Now. Tonight. We will, I said, though the word we felt like a bridge I wasn't ready to cross. But if we go with nothing, it's our word against pixels. We have the site. They'll take it down and put it back up with a different name, I said. The words came from a part of me that had read too many stories I never thought would be mine. We need more. Kayla looked at me like she was seeing a stranger, not because I was wrong, but because I was cold. A new organ had grown in me, hard, useful, unpretty. Then we get more, she said. We reopened the laptop. I opened a screen recorder and captured the page, the URL, the date and time in the menu bar, the payout banner. I clicked Creator Profile. The page skittered to a grid of packages, comments, metrics, tips. In Settings, a partial payout email flashed for half a second before the page re-hid behind asterisks. I froze the frame, zoomed. Kayla leaned in. That's his backup email, she whispered. The one he used when he signed up for free trials and never canceled. I'd seen it autofill on our TV apps. I kept recording. I scrolled to the bottom and clicked Terms. Buried under legal glue was a line about payouts via third-party processors. I opened a new tab and searched the processor. Login page. Branding. I didn't have credentials, but I had a name and a breadcrumb. Enough for tonight, Kayla said. For your heart. I nodded. We saved the recording to 3 places: desktop, cloud, an old USB drive that still had Holiday 2019 written on the side. We labeled the file with the date and time twice. I stood to go to the bathroom and froze. The mirror on the hallway wall, the one Ethan insisted we hang for light, was angled toward the bedroom door. We joked that it was vain. I stepped closer and saw it for the first time like a stranger would think for a mirror, heavier than it should be. I touched the frame. It vibrated faintly. Kayla, I said. She joined me, breath shallow. Do you think? Don't guess, I said. I slid my fingers along the back and found a notch I'd never noticed. I pressed. The frame clicked and lifted a fraction. A tiny lens winked from the corner like a secret that had been laughing at me for months. We didn't speak. We didn't scream. Kayla took her phone out and filmed my hand next to the lens. The notch, the way the mirror sat flush again when I let it drop. You good? she asked. "No," I said, "but I'm awake." We found two more. A charger in the outlet by the dresser that was heavier than a charger should be. A photo frame on the bookshelf with a dot the size of a pinhole in the matting. Everywhere I looked, the house became a stage and I felt naked even fully clothed. Back in the living room, my laptop bloomed back to life and glared. I typed frame house into the platform's search. The profile showed a total $18,320. A dozen small tips, a few larger ones. A line chart sloping up. He'd been building a revenue stream on my life without my consent. I pressed my knuckles hard into my thigh until I felt something that wasn't helplessness. "How long?" Kayla asked. I scrolled to the oldest upload. 10 months ago. The title, Blue Shirt Tuesday. 10 months of theft. Packaged as intimacy. I clicked report creator. A form opened. I filled it out. I wrote, non-consensual recordings. Identifiable private residence. Remove immediately. Notify law enforcement. I hit submit. A cheerful banner popped up. Thanks for keeping our community safe. I wanted to throw the laptop through the window. "Ethan will hear us if we keep talking," Kayla whispered. She nodded toward the dark hallway. "He's asleep?" "Yeah," I said. I didn't trust what the word meant anymore. We took the USB, the mirror video, the screen capture. I sent copies to a new encrypted email I made on the spot. I texted myself the link from a burner number Kayla created. We documented the time, the IP, the browser. We treated my life like a crime scene because it was. "I can't let him see me break," I said. Kayla tucked hair behind my ear like she used to in high school when I cried after bad dates. "Then don't," she said. "Not in front of him." I walked her to the door. On the threshold, she hesitated. "Please don't sleep here tonight. I'm not leaving without the evidence," I said. "Besides, if I pack a bag, he'll wake up." She studied my face and saw that the pleading part of the night was over. She squeezed my hand and left. I locked the door and leaned my forehead against it. Then I went back to the couch and watched a second hand on the wall clock make a full circle. Then another. Then I stood and walked down the hall to the office. The door creaked. I paused. Ethan didn't stir. Inside, the glow from the monitor was a faint ghost. He must have turned it off before coming to bed. The desk smelled like coffee and the lemon cleaner he used when he wanted to pretend he was organized. I didn't touch his laptop. I took his other phone, the one from chapter 2 of the charger. It asked for a passcode. I stared at the numbers and typed the only ones that made sense. Our anniversary. It unlocked. Rage is a neat little key sometimes. Notifications stacked like bricks. Messages from handles that were half names, half numbers. Payout confirmations. A thread with the platform support bot about verification. A folder in the Photos app labeled with a boring word brawl that made my skin crawl. I didn't open the videos. I photographed the folder view, the counts, the dates. I captured the payout screens, the transaction IDs, the payment received $1,800 banner I'd seen earlier. I airdropped the screenshots to my laptop and emailed them to the new account. Then I put the phone back at exactly where it had been, at the same angle, on the same cord, because patterns matter to people who think they're careful. I sat on the floor and counted my breaths until I could trust my legs. On the way back to bed, I stopped at the mirror again. I lifted it a fraction and stared at the little eye that had been feasting for months. "I see you," I said. It felt like a spell. Ethan rolled toward me when I slid under the covers. He draped an arm across my waist and murmured something sweet he'd said 100 times before. My face tilted toward the ceiling. The plaster had a crack that looked like a river. When the sun came up, I made coffee. I buttered toast. I kissed his temple like my life wasn't in my pocket on a USB drive. He smiled and told me he had to meet a client. I asked which one. He said a name I'd never heard. He didn't meet my eyes. The world had already tilted. Now it slotted into place. As the door clicked shut behind him, the apartment exhaled. I didn't. I grabbed my tote, the USB, the mirror video, the screenshots, the list of lenses embedded in my home like teeth. I put them in a folder and labeled it evidence because calling it anything softer felt like lying. On my way out, I passed the dresser. I removed the heavy charger and dropped it into a Ziploc. I slid the photo frame into the tote, tape dot and all. I didn't touch the hall mirror. I left it up, watching, so it could witness me taking back the story. In the elevator, A neighbor nodded and said, "Morning." I said it back and thought, you have no idea. The lobby smelled like coffee and carpet cleaner and the kind of normal that used to be mine. Kayla met me at the corner with 2 coffees and a look that said war. "Where first?" she asked. "2 places," I said. "A lawyer and a police station, both," she said, nodding. "Good." And then I added, the new organ in my chest humming steady, "I'm going to make sure he never sells another second of me again." Kayla handed me a coffee. "And if he tries?" I tightened my grip on the cup until the lid squeaked. "Then he learns what the word cost means." We walked into the morning. The city clattered and breathed. Somewhere above, in an apartment with too many eyes, a little red light watched a doorway that would not be a doorway much longer. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning of me. With receipts. Chapter 4. The confrontation that never happened. The plan had been simple in my head. I'd come home early, stand in the doorway of his office, hold up the evidence folder, and watch his face fall apart. I wanted the shock. I wanted the scramble. I wanted the stuttering excuses that would give me the power to say, "Save it. I know everything." But life never plays by the script you write in your head. 3 days after the discovery, I was on my way back from the lawyer's office when I saw his car parked in front of our building, but he wasn't inside. The driver's seat was empty. The engine was off. It was strange because Ethan never left his car unlocked, let alone unattended. I went upstairs, moving on autopilot, my tote heavy with documents. Our apartment door was ajar. I froze, pulse sprinting. I nudged it open an inch at a time. The office door was half closed. Through the gap, I could see him, headset on, leaning back in his chair like he owned the air. His voice was low but sharp. I took one silent step closer until the words came clear. "No. I told you. These are premium, private collection." She has no idea. I can guarantee authenticity, my watermarks on every frame. A pause. Then, payment upfront. Same as last time. I'm not getting burned again. Yeah. Same account. I've got 3 new jobs coming this week. You'll get them before anyone else. The bile climbed my throat so fast I had to clamp my hand over my mouth. He laughed, an easy, confident laugh I'd once thought was magnetic. "Of course I'll keep it quiet. Look, I've been doing this for months." She's clueless. That's why it works. Something in me went very still. My rage was there, coiled tight, but my instinct to burst and shrank. He wasn't just stealing from me. He was running an operation. The scale was bigger than I thought, bigger than just me. If I confronted him now, he'd deny everything, wipe drives, move money, evidence gone in minutes. And I'd be left with a story that sounded like paranoia to anyone who didn't want to believe it. I stepped back from the door, every movement deliberate. The old me would have screamed. The new me knew silence was sharper. I went to the kitchen and poured water into a glass, letting the tap run a little too long. I clinked ice cubes into it, the noise masking my breathing. When I passed the office again, the conversation had shifted. He was haggling. "I told you, $2,000 is lowball. This is an amateur hour. These are exclusive. If you don't want them, I have 3 other buyers lined up." 3 other buyers? My nails dug crescents into my palm. That was the moment I understood. This wasn't about catching him in the act, it was about ending him in the act. I left the apartment quietly, making sure the latch didn't click. Down on the street, I took out my phone and opened the encrypted email I'd set up. I sent Kayla a single line. "Change of plan. We go bigger." That night, I didn't go home. I stayed at Kayla's, lying on her couch while the ceiling fan carved the air into slow circles. I replayed his voice in my head, the arrogance, the certainty that I was a fool. Every syllable was a blueprint for his downfall. By morning, my plan had mutated. This wasn't going to be a confrontation. It was going to be an implosion, one he'd never see coming until it was already too late. We started by mapping his digital footprint. His frame house profile was just one front. With Kayla's tech-savvy friend Miles, we found 2 other aliases tied to similar uploads. The metadata told a story: IP addresses, upload times, file naming patterns. Each alias fed into the same payout account. Each account funneled into a second account. I recognized the secret bank account I'd found weeks earlier in Chapter 2. Miles grinned when he traced the chain. He thinks he's invisible. This is amateur hour compared to what I've seen. We collected it all: screenshots, transaction IDs, buyer handles. The more I saw, the less I wanted to storm into that office with a speech. The speech would give him time. The evidence would take that away. 2 nights later, I went home just before midnight. Ethan was asleep, his phone charging on the desk. I didn't touch it. Instead, I positioned a small Wi-Fi-enabled recorder under his office desk, angled at where his legs would be during calls. I'd set it to trigger only when it picked up his voice. The next morning, while he was meeting a client, I retrieved the device. 3 new recordings. Each one was a transaction in real-time amounts, job schedules, even a mention of reselling some older clips. That last part was important. It proved distribution, not just creation. When I listened to him say the words, "She'll never know," I smiled, not because it was true, but because it was already wrong. By the end of the week, I had a war chest of proof, enough to burn his accounts, his aliases, and his reputation in one hit. But I wasn't ready to go public yet. Not until I could make sure the fallout didn't just inconvenience him, it destroyed him. I sat at Kayla's kitchen table, the evidence folder open between us. She tapped one page. "You know you could end this tomorrow, right?" "I don't want to end it tomorrow," I said. "I want to end it permanently." The old me wanted the satisfaction of looking him in the eye and saying I know. The new me wanted him to never see me coming. This wasn't a confrontation anymore. It was a countdown. Chapter 5. The Setya Prevenge looks glamorous in movies. In real life, it's a spreadsheet, a calendar, and a folder named evidence you back up in 3 places. Kayla called it a sting. My lawyer, Avery, called it a strategy with teeth. I called it the only way I'd sleep again. Before we did anything, Avery laid down rules. "Number 1, she said, tapping her pen. "You don't touch his devices anymore. You've captured what was in plain view in your own home. That's enough for now. Number 2, no public blasts, no vigilante justice. We move through the right channels so the fallout sticks. Number 3, anything we stage, you consent to. Anything we share only with law enforcement, platforms, or counsel. Understood?" "Understood," I said. The part of me that wanted to light a match swallowed the lecture. The part of me that wanted results wrote the rules down. The circle we needed: a small circle and a big footprint. Kayla was my anchor, the one who'd pull me back if rage tried to sprint ahead of reason. Miles, her friend, became our digital translator. Metadata, chains, the dull magic of timestamps. Avery handled letters on letterhead that meant we're serious. She prepped a police report packet. The hidden cameras, the platform captures, the payout screenshots, the recordings of his calls. And then there was me, the person who knew Ethan's habits better than anyone alive. The goal wasn't just to expose him. It was to make the story unarguable and the consequences unavoidable. "The canary give me something he can't resist," Miles said. "Something that looks like what he wants, but that tells us exactly where it goes." I didn't want to pose. I didn't want to be filmed for any purpose that touched Ethan's world. Avery didn't want that either. So we didn't. We built canaries, harmless, legal clips that looked private at a glance but were nothing of the sort. Close-up shots of my hand flipping a book page, my shoulder in an oversized sweater turning away from camera, a dimly lit room with a curtain swaying and nothing else. No nudity, no intimacy, just suggestion. Each file carried a unique, invisible marker, Miles embedded like a serial number woven into the pixels. He also added a tiny audible cue at a different second in each clip, the barely there click of a pen, a whisper of paper. They were benign, fully consensual, and ours. "Are you sure he'll bite?" Kayla asked. "Ethan doesn't sell content," I said. "He sells the feeling of access. These will look like more of the same." We didn't upload them anywhere public. We left them where Ethan would take them. A folder labeled taxes on the shared external drive he'd been pillaging for months, beside innocuous PDFs. It was the only place I was still willing to let him find something inside our home, on storage he'd already rummaged through, with Avery's blessing. Then we waited. The map in the meantime, we mapped his world, using only open information and what we already had. Miles built a web, Ethan's alias profiles, Framehouse, and to others, the processor accounts funneling his payouts, the IP ranges that matched our home, and a nearby co-working space. Avery drafted preservation requests to the platform and the processor, instructing them to freeze relevant data in anticipation of a formal report. This buys time, Avery said. It also stops a delete spree from erasing the server-side trail. We also followed the trail Kayla's gym contact opened. A quiet DM to a few women who'd been tagged or referenced by the same buyer handles that liked Ethan's uploads. Not to stir a mob, to ask a simple, careful question through Avery's office. Have you experienced non-consensual recordings? If yes, would you like your evidence forwarded to law enforcement alongside ours? Two responded with versions of my story. One sent screenshots that showed Ethan under a different alias trading low-res edits of clips that looked like hotel rooms. That would matter later. Not only was he uploading stolen footage of me, he appeared to be reselling stolen footage of others. Patterns convict people more efficiently than rage. Avery organized it all into a timeline. When he filmed, when he uploaded, when he got paid. Dates, amounts, platforms, device names. A life measured in betrayals and receipts. The biddy took the Canary on a Wednesday. Miles texted. File 03 pulled. Copied to external at 11:14 a.m. exfilled to co-working IP at 1:02 p.m. I felt sick and vindicated at the same time. By nightfall, the same Canary, our harmless shoulder turn, appeared behind one of his aliases' paywalls, recaptioned with insinuation, watermarked with his brand. We captured the page, the hash, the payout ID when the first tip came in. Then we filed a supplemental report to the platform with Avery's letter, uploaded non-consensual material, demonstrably staged by rights holder for investigative purposes. This account is reselling material they do not own. Freeze funds. Provide records to law enforcement. 2 hours later, the alias pinged under review. Small win, not the war. He pivoted to his main profile. We expected that. The Berersi didn't want to talk to any buyer. That wasn't my job. Avery agreed, but buyers talk to each other. All they needed was a reason. Miles set up an innocuous forum monitor, not intrusion. Just a search bot watching for key phrases connected to Ethan's handles. On Friday, the first thread appeared. Frame house selling recycled content. A user posted a side-by-side. One of our Canary frames and an older clip Ethan had posted. The backgrounds suspiciously similar, the watermark alignment sloppy. Others chimed in with their own receipts. When money is involved, loyalty melts. Within a day, a dozen comments demanded refunds. The platform's support bot, blissfully robotic, replied with "Please submit a ticket. Tickets mean holds. Holds mean frozen payouts. Frozen payouts mean panic." The employer that wasn't Ethan didn't have a traditional employer, but he had clients, and they had reputations to protect. Avery prepared a neutral notice. Your contractor is the subject of a pending law enforcement report regarding non-consensual recordings and distribution. We recommend pausing engagement until this is resolved. She sent it only to companies with public contact addresses we could verify, not a scorched earth, just a chill wind. 2 paused. 1 terminated. Another replied with a single line. We wondered why deliverables were late. Consequences, not chaos. The mirror comes down with the preservation requests filed and the Canary documented. I let myself do one satisfying thing that wasn't strategic at all. The hall mirror. Avery nodded when I asked. It's your home. Photograph it. Remove it carefully. Keep the device intact. Kayla stood with me while I slid the frame off and revealed the little black eye. My stomach flipped, but my hands were steady. I unscrewed it like it was a bad idea we were uninstalling. We placed it in a box labeled Exhibit Mirror and sealed it with tape. I took the photo frame camera down too. The heavy charger went next. Each device got a bag. Each bag got a note with date and time. The apartment felt less haunted after that. Quieter, honest. The next move felt petty and perfect at once. Ethan's side hustle depended on being seen as a reliable source of exclusive content. Reliability dies when people feel scammed. Miles created a simple, public page. A notice to buyers of Framehouse and related aliases. No accusations, no doxing, no names, just for things. A blurred copy of our Canary next to the watermark from 2 different aliases. The platform's own terms prohibiting non-consensual content and resale. A list of ticket numbers redacted showing that refunds were already being processed. A statement: if you have purchased content from these accounts, You may be eligible for a chargeback from your payment provider. Contact them directly. Do not contact us. We didn't need to post the link anywhere. The forum thread found it within an hour. Chargeback talk spread like oil on water. Processors hate chargebacks. Processors freeze accounts to stop them. By Sunday, one of Ethan's payout dashboards displayed a gray banner. Account under review. High dispute rate. The number next to available balance flipped to $0.0. I saved the screenshot and set it as my phone background for an hour. Then I changed it, because trophies are heavy. The call before the fall at night, Ethan called me from the living room while I was brushing my teeth. Hey! His voice was bright and brittle. Do you know if the Wi-Fi's been weird? Some of my clients can't access their files, I said, spitting. Weird. He hovered in the doorway, searching my face for the old softness. You okay? Fine. He smiled. I booked his dinner Friday. I thought, we could use a reset. Lovely, I said, and looked at him like I was seeing him for the first time. He looked back like he couldn't tell which parts of me were real anymore. Good. Let confusion do some of the work. He went to his office and closed the door. 15 minutes later, the door opened, and he left the apartment with the walk of a man who thinks walking quickly changes the truth. Kayla texted, "Forum thread says he's offering off-platform deals now." Avery replied in the group chat, "Perfect. That violates platform terms." Screenshot everything. Adds breach to the packet. By morning, 2 of his profiles were suspended. The third showed a desperate banner, limited time discount. The comments were a bonfire. The letters have refiled the police report in full, attaching the timeline, device photos, recordings, and platform responses. She also sent a demand letter to the platform's legal department. Preserve all login IPs, payout logs, and internal communications regarding the 3 aliases. Confirm funds remain frozen. Confirm law enforcement contact. Then she sent a cease and desist to Ethan's business email and registered address, instructing him to immediately remove any recordings of me from any device or platform, cease distribution, and preserve all evidence under threat of spoliation sanctions. I expected anger. I didn't expect the knock on my door 20 minutes after the courier confirmation. It was Ethan. He looked smaller, like bad weather had finally gotten inside his bones. "Can we talk?" he asked, voice low. I opened the door enough to make it clear he wasn't invited in. "We are. Someone's lying about me," he said. "My accounts are down. Clients are calling. I need you to tell me you didn't." He stopped. He saw the box on my table labeled Exhibit Mirror. Something in his throat clicked. "Dinner Friday?" I asked gently, the way you ask a child if they want to keep playing pretend. His mouth pressed into a white line. "You don't understand. I can fix this. If we just you're right," I said. "You can fix this with the truth." He stared at me like he was trying to remember a password. "Close the door, please," I added. He didn't move, so I did it for him. Behind it, I sagged against the wood and let myself have 1 minute, just one, where I remembered the pier on our second date and the way he'd kissed my wrist like it was breakable. Then I looked at the box on the table and remembered it wasn't my wrist that broke. It was the world I lived in without knowing I was being watched. The countdown weren't done. The biggest move was ahead. The public collapse, not a flaming call-out, but a coordinated click where the people he depended on pressed block, suspend, terminate on the same day. Avery scheduled the press inquiry for Monday, one trustworthy outlet we'd vetted, with strict conditions: no names until charges, focus on the pattern, highlight platform responsibility and the rise of non-consensual content. If the story ran, his aliases wouldn't just be suspended, he'd be a cautionary tale that followed him into every new username he tried. I set my calendar for Monday 9:00 a.m. like it was a dentist appointment. Kayla set a coffee date for the same time across the street from the police station, in case I needed her hand after we signed the last page. Miles queued the final batch of preservation requests, tied to the processor disputes we knew would hit overnight. Avery drafted the victim impact statement for me. I filled in the parts that read like thunder. On Sunday night, the apartment was finally quiet, no small blinking lights, no phantom hum. I lit a candle that smelled like cut grass and open windows. I put the canary files in a folder called Closure. I opened a blank document and typed exactly one sentence. He thought privacy was a thing to take. I learned it's a thing to defend. I closed the laptop and slept 8 hours straight for the first time in weeks. Monday was coming. The setup was done. All that remained was to watch a very predictable man learn that inevitability can be a weapon too. Chapter 6. The collapse. Heath deal went through at 9:17 a.m. on a Thursday. I watched a notification hit the burner inbox we'd built for the super buyer. Payment confirmed. Deliverables? A second later, Ethan replied from one of his aliases with the confidence of a man who still believed the world would always bend for him. Uploading now. He attached 3 files our canaries watermarked and renamed as if new. VNBN McNH. Miles sent a single checkmark to our group thread. Avery replied with 2 words, "That's distribution." The first domino fell at 9:23. The payment processor flagged the transaction for review and placed a hold on Ethan's account, citing unusual activity, not because of us but because that much money moving to a seller already trending with disputes lights up every fraud dashboard like a Christmas tree. At 9:40, the platform suspended his main profile. At 9:57, the alias followed. The third limped along with a warning banner and a comments section that read like a public unmasking. Recycled. Stolen. Chargeback filed. Buyers who'd worshipped his exclusives were suddenly experts in policy and forensic pixel detectives. People who felt con make efficient prosecutors. Avery hit send on the last packet to the detective assigned to our report payout logs, the fresh upload, the processor hold, the handset recordings of Ethan's premium promises. "They'll want to talk to you again," she said. Today. If they're smart, they were. By noon, the detective called to confirm a follow-up interview and advised me not to engage Ethan directly. "Don't worry," I said, looking at my calendar where I'd scheduled that very temptation and labeled it "No, I prefer paper." At 12:18, 2 of Ethan's corporate clients responded to Avery's notices. One paused his contract. The other terminated immediately and asked for a forwarding address for law enforcement. The word terminated looked like justice typed in caps. He must have felt the floor go soft under his feet then, because at 12:34, my phone lit up with his name. "Ethan, are you home? We need to talk." Me. Later. "Ethan, it's urgent." Me. "I know." I didn't mute the thread. I didn't block him. I let the dots appear and vanish, like a heartbeat that couldn't decide whether to stay. At 1:02, the forum Miles monitored posted a new thread. "Frame house equals scam. Refunds?" A moderator pinned our buyer notice with the blurred proof and the list of ticket numbers redacted. The replies multiplied. Requests for chargebacks, screenshots of your seller is under review, and one message that made the room seem brighter for a second. I thought this was normal. It's not. "Thank you." Kayla brought coffee. "How do you feel?" she asked. I took a breath and realized it wasn't shallow. Like the house finally believes me. At 2:15, Ethan knocked. Not the light, romantic kind of knock I met months ago on rainy nights. A flat, official-sounding knock, like he wanted to pretend he had authority in my doorway. I opened the door a few inches. His face looked wrong. Too many expressions tried on at once. Outrage, hurt, charm. "Someone's attacking me," he said, as if narrating a movie where the villain miscast himself as the hero. My accounts froze. "Clients are pulling out." "It's targeted." "It is," I said. He blinked. "So you admit it." "I admit facts," I said, and watched a hinge in his jaw twitch. "You sold images of me. You sold images of other women. You lied for profit. What's happening now is called consequence." He tried a different key. "We can fix this together." "No," I said calmly. "You broke it alone." His gaze slid past me to the table where the exhibit mirror box sat. He took one involuntary step forward. I didn't move. He stopped. "I loved you," he said, and for a moment there was the man at the pier, the charger in a calf, the person who knew the name of my childhood dog. "The past is talented at costume changes." "Maybe," I said, "but you loved money more. And control most." He swallowed. "Lawyers are expensive, so are chargebacks," I said. "And settlements. And reputations." He stared, searching for the old version of me, the one who would have asked, "What can I do?" That girl was busy, learning how to breathe in a room without hidden lenses. "Dinner tomorrow?" He tried. Ridiculous to the end. "We could know," I said gently, and closed the door. At 3:05, Avery texted, "Detective wants your statement at 4 o'clock." Kayla squeezed my hand. "I'll drive." Before we left, I allowed myself one unnecessary mercy. I took the index card from my desk, the one with the single sentence I'd typed the night before, and slipped it into my bag beneath the evidence folder. I didn't know if I'd need it. I liked knowing it was there. The precinct smelled like dry paper and disinfectant. The detective was efficient, kind without being soft. He asked good questions. I answered them with timestamps. When he listened to Ethan's recorded calls, his pen paused mid-scratch. "That helps," he said. "A lot." He explained carefully what could happen next. Warrants for devices, platform cooperation, potential charges. "We'll keep you updated," he said, and I believed him. When we stepped back into the late afternoon, the city was the same and not. A bus hissed. A kid dropped a skateboard and darted into a beam of sun. Kayla shielded her eyes and grinned at me like we'd survived a storm and discovered we still liked the sky. My phone buzzed as we crossed the street. It was an email from the platform's legal team confirming freezes on all 3 aliases and pledging cooperation with law enforcement. I forwarded it to Avery, who replied with a thumbs up and a line that felt like a steel brace. "Civil options next. One thing at a time." We were halfway to the car when Ethan stepped out from behind a lamppost. He wasn't close. He wasn't stupid. He just wanted a last shot at the story. "This will ruin me," he said. No preface. No hello. I didn't slow. "You did that." He took one step, and the detective who'd just walked out behind us looked up, saw my face, and stopped too. Ethan saw him, recalculated, and lifted his palms. "I'm just talking." I met his eyes once more, not to re-enter the past, but to mark the exit. "You filmed me without consent," I said evenly. "You sold me, and you told people I wouldn't know." I tilted my head. "You were wrong about a lot of things, Ethan." "Start there." He opened his mouth, closed it. The detective's radio crackled. Kayla's keys chimed in her palm. Somewhere a dog barked at a pigeon like justice in minor key. We left him on the sidewalk, a man auditioning for a part that no longer existed. Back home, I did 3 small things that felt like ceremony. I changed the Wi-Fi name to "You Can't Afford Pamasi" and the password to something only I would know. I boxed the last hidden device we'd found and labeled it "Exhibit Charger" in neat letters. And I opened the window above the sink and let the air in until the apartment smelled like outside. My phone buzzed again. "Miles. Processor just hardlocked all payouts. He's at $0. Avery. Client number 3 terminated. Unknown number. I saw your notice." He sold me too. "I'm ready to talk to police." Avery's office number was attached. I set the phone down and realized my hands had stopped shaking. There would be more statements, hearings, maybe headlines if the reporter Avery vetted ran the piece. There would be days I'd want to hide, and nights I'd wake to a memory that wasn't a nightmare, just a quiet, accurate recording of how it felt to lose a home to a lens. But not today. Today was collapse. At sunset, I walked to the mirror-bright window, saw only me, and didn't look away. The next chapter would start in the morning, with a choice I hadn't decided yet: civil suit, press, both, or neither. I didn't have to pick in the doorway. For once, time worked for me. Somewhere across town, a man refreshed a blank balance and finally understood the price. And somewhere in my bag, an index card waited, patient as a verdict. He thought privacy was a thing to take. I learned it's a thing to defend. Chapter 7: The Payoff and the Twisty Morning of the hearing. Ethan looked like a man already serving time. His suit hung loose on him, hair unkempt, eyes bloodshot, but the arrogance that had finally cracked. When the judge read the charges: unlawful distribution, invasion of privacy, wire fraud, I watched him flinch at each word. My lawyer laid out the digital trail, the super buyer payment, chat logs, bank transfers, and even the mirrored messages from his phone. Ethan's attorney tried to frame it as consensual misunderstandings, but the judge wasn't buying it. By midday, the verdict was in. Guilty on multiple counts. Sentencing postponed but bail denied. He wouldn't be going home. Outside the courthouse, the press was waiting. Cameras clicked, reporters shouted questions, and Ethan tried to shield his face as they dragged him into the van. His name was already trending, not for his business, but for his spectacular fall. His buyers, terrified of being implicated, scattered like rats. Some even came forward with their own complaints, hoping for leniency. Within days, his accounts were frozen. The expensive car, the flashy watches, even the condo all ceased pending investigation. His empire had been reduced to a pile of evidence bags. My personal victory came quietly. One afternoon, I walked into the coffee shop where we'd first met. The barista smiled, unaware that this was the place where Ethan had charmed me into trusting him. I sipped my drink and realized something unexpected. It wasn't just about destroying him anymore. It was about reclaiming me. But revenge has a way of lingering. A week later, I received a thick envelope with no return address. Inside was a handwritten note in Ethan's blocky scrawl. "You think you've won, but you don't know the whole story. Check account ending in 7312. You're not the only one who's been watching. The bank account was real, and it wasn't in Ethan's name. The balance? More than double what I'd exposed. Someone else had been pulling strings, and now they knew exactly who I was."